October 7, 2025. In the hushed grandeur of a Cairo conference hall, a pivotal moment unfolds. Representatives from Israel, Hamas, Qatar, and the United States gather. Their declared purpose, peace. Their chosen words, peace and security. But as these phrases fill the air, an ancient whisper warns that such words, spoken at this precise juncture, may signify not an end, but a beginning. 2 years to the day since the landscape of the Middle East was irrevocably altered, these nations now convene, attempting to mend what seems broken. Yet, what if the very act of seeking this superficial calm is, in itself, a crucial turn in a narrative far grander, far older, than any political negotiation? Before we uncover the intricate threads of this story, we want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching this analysis unfold? Share your location in the comments below. Now, let's examine the convergence of modern geopolitics and ancient prophecy. The grand atrium of the Egyptian International Conference Center, a sprawling architectural testament to modern diplomacy, was awash in the cool, sterile light of hundreds of television cameras. Its polished marble floors, imported from quarries across the globe, gleamed under the meticulous array of spotlights, reflecting the focused expressions of delegates, security personnel, and an unprecedented contingent of international journalists. A low, persistent hum from broadcasting equipment provided an ambient soundtrack, a counterpoint to the quiet, almost reverent tones in which early conversations were held. Despite the outward display of meticulous organization and the carefully curated atmosphere of collaborative intent, an undercurrent of profound tension was palpable, a stark contrast to the optimistic headlines that already scrolled across news tickers worldwide. The date itself was a silent, yet potent, reminder of the gravity of the occasion, precisely 2 years to the day since the violent incursion into Israeli territory, an event that had catastrophically shifted the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East and beyond. Today, nations had reconvened in Cairo, ostensibly to forge a lasting peace. Seated at the head of the Israeli delegation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, a statesman often referred to as the guardian of the promise, maintained a posture of guarded resolve. His tailored suit, a muted navy, seemed to absorb the room's intense scrutiny rather than deflect it. His gaze, habitually sharp and analytical, frequently swept across the faces of the other delegations, lingering momentarily on the representatives of Hamas, before returning to his own meticulously arranged notes. He engaged in hushed, yet pointed, exchanges with his senior advisors, his hand occasionally rising to adjust the microphone before him, a gesture that conveyed both an unwavering focus and the immense historical burden he carried. Every word, every potential concession, was weighed not merely for its immediate political implication but for its resonance within the deep, often painful, annals of his nation's history. He navigated the intricate dance of diplomatic protocol with a cautious pragmatism, acutely aware that for Israel, such negotiations were never merely about present-day politics but about the foundational security and very future of his people. Unbeknownst to many in the room, and perhaps even to the Prime Minister himself, his determined efforts to safeguard Israel's existing covenants were, in a peculiar twist of fate, drawing the nation closer to the confirmation of another, far older, prophetic pact. Across the sprawling, custom-built conference table, former U.S. President Donald Trump, self-proclaimed the architect of peace, commanded a significant portion of the media's attention. His presence was a deliberate, often boisterous, statement. He leaned forward, gesturing broadly with his hands as he articulated his vision to the assembled delegates and the waiting global audience. His rhetoric was infused with an almost messianic conviction, reiterating his prior assurances that he alone possessed the unique capacity to bring peace to the Middle East once and for all. He outlined a detailed framework for a comprehensive, multilateral agreement, emphasizing its immediate objectives, a robust ceasefire, extensive reconstruction efforts for conflict-ravaged areas, and the establishment of an enduring regional peace. His delivery was characterized by an unwavering confidence, a certainty that his diplomatic leverage and personal charisma were the decisive factors in overcoming centuries of animosity. He spoke of historical breakthroughs and the dawn of a new era, framing the proposed accord as an unprecedented achievement. In his own mind, he was a pivotal force for good, a catalyst for stability. Yet, In the broader, unseen narrative, his influential role in galvanizing this pact with many positioned him, however inadvertently, as an instrument fulfilling ancient prophetic utterances, a crucial gear in a cosmological mechanism far beyond his political aspirations. Further removed from the central dais, almost physically embodying the concept of intransigence, sat Yahya Sinwar, the supreme leader of Hamas in Gaza. Flanked by his delegation, his posture was less about engagement and more about an enduring, unyielding presence. His face, often described in intelligence reports as impassive, offered little insight into his internal state. His eyes, dark and direct, met no one's gaze for an extended period, instead sweeping across the room with an air of detached observation. To international observers, Sinwar was the man of ruins, a figure whose life trajectory, from incarceration to his current position of undeniable power, epitomized the intractable nature of resistance that continued to define a significant segment of the Palestinian struggle. His very presence at the table was a stark, almost confrontational, reminder of the deep-seated grievances and unaddressed wounds that no political accord could easily bridge. He represented, to many, the stumbling block against any truly comprehensive and lasting peace, a living embodiment of the hostility that, according to ancient texts, would persist until the ultimate culmination of history. While the other delegations spoke of compromise and cooperation, Sinwar's silence, coupled with his rigid demeanor, underscored the profound ideological chasms that permeated the conference hall, hinting at a resistance that ran deeper than any diplomatic resolution could hope to achieve. As the carefully chosen phrases of peace and security began to circulate, first within the conference chamber and then across global media networks, a profound and ancient warning, previously alluded to, resonated with an almost palpable weight for those attuned to its significance. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 3. This biblical passage, though unspoken by any participant, hung invisibly above the proceedings, a stark, prophetic counterpoint to the fervent hopes and diplomatic pronouncements filling the air. It established an inescapable tension between the world's desperate human desire for stability and an impending, unyielding prophetic reality. The meticulously constructed facade of hope, articulated through official statements and media optimism, was, for those who understood the ancient texts, merely a thin veil over a truth far more unsettling. The very words that promised respite were, in the context of this specific date and these converging events, understood by some to be the very harbinger of an irreversible turning point, a prelude to an unforeseen, and unavoidable, catastrophe. October 7, 2025. In the austere yet opulent conference hall in Cairo, the meticulously arranged negotiations continued, each pronouncement and concession dissected under the unwavering gaze of an international press corps. For those tracking the arc of ancient prophecies, Israel's geographical and spiritual position was not merely that of a nation-state embroiled in perennial conflict, it was, as described by ancient texts, the epicenter of the divine plan. Each geopolitical tremor, every diplomatic overture concerning this sliver of land, transcended the realm of human conflict to become a critical marker on what some referred to as God's clock, charting the inexorable march of prophetic time. The scene unfolding on this precise anniversary was acutely symbolic. Egypt, with its historical gravitas and strategic regional position, assumed the role of primary mediator, its diplomatic corps navigating the intricate demands of all parties with seasoned finesse. Qatar, a nation of significant financial leverage in a complex network of regional relationships, exerted its influence through strategic proposals and implicit economic pressures, often working in tandem with the United States. And at the helm of the American delegation, former President Donald Trump continued to drive the discussions with his characteristic assertiveness, his pronouncements echoing his self-appointed title, the Architect of Peace. His every public statement, every private intervention, was designed to push the diverse parties towards a consensus, his focus unwavering on the perceived achievement of a definitive peace accord. All eyes, both literal and metaphorical, were fixed upon Jerusalem. The city, sacred to three Abrahamic faiths, was the silent, yet most potent, participant in the room. The negotiations revolved around its future, its security, and the broader regional stability that theoretically stemmed from its status. This intricate dance of international diplomacy, unfolding on the exact 2-year anniversary of an event that had violently reignited conflict, presented a convergence of factors that, to a growing segment of observers, appeared uncannily precise. It was difficult for many to dismiss such timing as mere coincidence. Instead, it began to suggest an almost preordained orchestration. This particular confluence of events resonated profoundly with a prophecy detailed in the book of Daniel, specifically Daniel 9 verse 27. This ancient text speaks of a covenant with many that would be confirmed for a specified period. The current multilateral agreement, brokered by a coalition of nations, was overtly centered on Israel. Its declared objectives, a comprehensive ceasefire, an expansive plan for reconstruction in areas devastated by conflict, and the establishment of what was widely hoped to be a lasting regional peace, aligned strikingly with the description of such a covenant. It was an accord designed to bring a semblance of stability, a shared commitment from multiple powerful entities to manage the volatile dynamics of the Middle East. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, bearing the weight of his nation's security, was at the forefront of shaping the terms of this burgeoning agreement. His efforts were meticulous, his focus squarely on embedding clauses that he believed would unequivocally protect Israel's long-term interests. He engaged in prolonged, often contentious, discussions regarding border integrity, security guarantees, and the demilitarization of specific territories. His public statements emphasized the necessity of verifiable assurances and the imperative of safeguarding Israel against future threats. His intentions were clear: to secure his nation's future within a framework of stability. What remained outside his immediate awareness, however, was the profound prophetic symbolism of his role. In his earnest endeavor to preserve the original promise of Israel's security and sovereignty, he was, perhaps unknowingly, serving as a pivotal figure in the confirmation of a different pact, one that, according to ancient scriptural warnings, would precede a period of profound betrayal and upheaval. His strategic decisions, guided by geopolitical realities and national security imperatives, were inadvertently aligning with an ancient blueprint, setting in motion events that extended far beyond the immediate political horizon. Adding a pervasive layer of disquiet to the proceedings was the silent, often inscrutable, presence of Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas. Seated at a slight remove, his demeanor was one of profound distrust. He engaged minimally, his contributions to the dialogue often limited to terse, unyielding statements of fundamental principles that underscored his organization's deep-seated skepticism of any agreement with Israel. His very posture communicated an unshakable adherence to a resistance ideology, a stark refusal to concede to what he viewed as illegitimate demands. His presence at the table was less about participation in a shared vision of peace and more about observing, measuring, and perhaps calculating. His unwavering skepticism served as a constant, somber reminder of the inherent fragility of the peace being constructed. To many, Sinwar personified the stumbling block, the enduring hostility against Israel that, according to ancient texts, would persist and challenge any human attempt at true reconciliation until a different, divinely ordained peace could be established. His calculated silence and palpable defiance highlighted the fundamental truth that a superficial peace, devoid of genuine forgiveness and a transformative shift in spiritual disposition, was inherently unsustainable. The interplay between these powerful figures, Netanyahu, the pragmatic protector, Trump, the forceful architect, and Sinwar, the defiant resistor, unfolded against the backdrop of an unprecedented global media focus. The question lingered, an unspoken narrative beneath the polished pronouncements: were these events merely the complex machinery of modern geopolitics, a series of coincidences occurring on a historically resonant date? Or did they, in their startling precision and alignment with ancient texts, represent something far more profound, the intricate unfolding of a divine plan, with human actors, knowingly or unknowingly, playing their assigned roles on a cosmic stage? The very act of the nations saying peace and security on this specific day, under these precise circumstances, seemed to activate a deeper, more ominous timeline, transforming the conference hall in Cairo from a venue of diplomatic negotiation into a pivotal theater for unfolding prophecy. While the focus of international media remained largely fixed on the delicate diplomatic dance unfolding in Cairo on October 7, 2025, a broader, more intricate tapestry of global events was simultaneously being woven, suggesting a pattern far more profound than mere political maneuvering. For those who study ancient prophecies, the timing of these peace negotiations was not an isolated incident but a critical component of an emerging prophetic pattern. The recurring motif of a 2-year period, in particular, resonated with historical echoes, serving as a chilling reminder of an apparent rebirth before real judgment. History itself provided a series of poignant parallels. Before the cataclysmic deluge described in ancient texts, humanity experienced a prolonged period of seemingly normal existence, punctuated by warnings that went largely unheeded. Similarly, prior to the devastating fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the region was often characterized by a series of fragile peace treaties and political alliances, creating an illusion of stability that masked the impending societal and spiritual collapse. In each instance, a period of deceptive calm or apparent hope preceded a dramatic, often violent, reckoning. It was a pattern, researchers noted, of a world embracing a superficial tranquility, only for that fragile peace to shatter under the weight of an unforeseen cataclysm. Now, as the world's leaders spoke of peace and security with renewed optimism, the resonance of this historical pattern became deafening, signaling that the current diplomatic efforts, rather than being a definitive solution, might instead be a deceptive prelude. The weeks leading up to October 7 had witnessed an unprecedented convergence of simultaneous global signals, each distinct yet collectively contributing to a sense of escalating unease. From volatile corners of the Middle East to simmering tensions in Southeast Asia and the rekindling of long-dormant ethno-nationalist conflicts in Eastern Europe, conflicts were exploding in different regions. These were not isolated skirmishes but seemingly synchronized flare-ups, drawing international attention and straining global diplomatic resources. Established alliances were being tested, and new, unpredictable fronts were emerging with alarming speed. Concurrently, a wave of widespread political instabilities swept across continents. Governments, once considered bastions of democratic stability, found themselves grappling with unexpected leadership crises, rapid shifts in power dynamics, and a surge in populist movements challenging traditional governance structures. Economic uncertainties, social unrest, and unprecedented levels of internal dissent contributed to a pervasive sense of governmental fragility. From unexpected resignations of long-serving heads of state to widespread civil protests erupting in major capitals, the established order seemed to be crumbling in real time, replaced by a volatile and unpredictable political landscape. In the natural world, the signs were equally unsettling. Reports indicated a marked increase in earthquakes and natural disasters. Seismic activity appeared to intensify, with larger magnitude tremors registered in regions historically considered stable. Beyond geological phenomena, extreme weather events became more frequent and severe. Record-breaking heat waves, unprecedented floods, and super typhoons ravaged populations, displacing millions and causing catastrophic damage. These events, once considered anomalies, were now occurring with a regularity that defied conventional explanation, prompting questions about the planet's fundamental equilibrium. Simultaneously, a troubling trend of growing hostility against Christians became increasingly evident. In various parts of the world, religious minorities, particularly Christian communities, faced intensified persecution. This manifested in legal restrictions on worship, systematic discrimination, and outright violence, including attacks on churches and the displacement of entire communities. The suppression of religious freedoms, often justified under various political or social pretexts, signaled a profound shift in global tolerance and respect for fundamental human rights. Yet, amidst these escalating crises, a contrasting, almost paradoxical, phenomenon was also taking hold, an unprecedented global evangelistic surge. Across diverse cultures and demographics, there was a sudden, widespread spiritual awakening. Missionary efforts intensified, reaching new populations with messages of repentance, return, and redemption. Mass conversions were reported from regions traditionally resistant to Christian outreach, and a powerful, urgent call for spiritual revival resonated through communities worldwide. This simultaneous outpouring of faith, occurring amidst global turmoil, created a stark juxtaposition, hinting at a profound, dualistic turning point in human history. These converging global events, occurring within a compressed time frame, resonated deeply with the prophetic words of Jesus in Matthew 24. There, these signs are described not as the end itself, but as the beginning of birth pains, the initial, yet increasingly intense, contractions that precede a monumental delivery. Each crisis, each upheaval, each shift in the global order, was akin to another contraction, each one more intense and closer than the last. The world, in this profound and dramatic metaphor, was depicted as being in labor, straining and groaning under the weight of escalating pressures, preparing to give birth to an entirely new era. The profound discomfort and escalating chaos were not random but part of a necessary, albeit painful, process. At the very heart of this global travail, Israel, with its peace negotiations, was not merely one nation among many experiencing these shifts, it was portrayed as the heart that marks the rhythm of this global labor. The diplomatic efforts in Cairo, the precise timing of the agreement on the anniversary of past bloodshed, and the fervent discussions about peace and security were not just political events. They were the pulse points, the essential beats that dictated the pace and intensity of the surrounding global tremors. This inextricable link between Israel's fate and the world's unfolding drama elevated the current negotiations from a regional conflict resolution to a pivotal moment in cosmic history, deepening the suspense and solidifying the unsettling sense that something monumental, an event of unparalleled significance, was rapidly approaching its culmination. The signatures were affixed, the documents exchanged, and the meticulously orchestrated applause echoed through the Egyptian International Conference Center. On October 7, 2025, the world watched as a multilateral agreement, hailed by many as a monumental breakthrough, was formally announced. The speeches that followed were imbued with an almost intoxicating blend of hope and self-congratulation. Leaders spoke of transcending historical grievances, of forging a new path toward stability, and of delivering a generation from the cycle of violence. The promises were sweeping: a lasting ceasefire, substantial international aid earmarked for reconstruction in Gaza, mechanisms for prisoner exchanges, and enhanced security protocols designed to prevent future escalations. News outlets globally broadcast images of diplomatic triumph, portraying the agreement as a victory for pragmatism over entrenched conflict. A collective sigh of relief seemed to reverberate across nations, the illusion of peace taking firm root in the global consciousness. However, beneath the veneer of diplomatic achievement and the emotional resonance of promises for a better tomorrow, lay a profound spiritual layer that the world did not perceive. This unseen dimension challenged the very foundation of the declared peace. For those attuned to ancient prophecies, these meticulously crafted agreements, though presented as beacons of hope and security, carried a far more ominous designation. The ancient text of Isaiah 28 referred to such arrangements as an alliance with death, treaties that, on the surface, appeared to guarantee safety and prosperity, but in reality, paved the way for destruction. The prophet's chilling words resonated: "Because you have said, 'We have made a covenant with death, and with Sheol we have an agreement, when the overwhelming scourge passes through, it will not come to us, for we have made lies our refuge and in falsehood we have hidden ourselves.'" Yet, the divine response was equally clear: your covenant with death will be annulled, your agreement with Sheol will not stand. When the overwhelming scourge passes through, you will be trampled by it. It was crucial, for those understanding the prophetic framework, to recognize that these agreements were not inherently malicious in their intent. The statesmen involved, from Prime Minister Netanyahu striving to protect Israel's future to former President Trump confidently brokering the accord, genuinely believed they were working toward a constructive outcome. Their motivations were rooted in geopolitical necessity, national interest, and a sincere desire to alleviate suffering. Yet, their efforts were fundamentally deceptive, not due to ill will, but because they dared to promise a peace that, by spiritual design, only the Messiah could truly fulfill. Human hands, however skilled in diplomacy and statecraft, could only stitch equilibrium where there was a spiritual wound. They attempted to mend a broken world with political bandages, overlooking the profound spiritual disjuncture that lay at the root of the conflict. The world, in its earnest pursuit of political solutions, overlooked the foundational truth that genuine, lasting peace was a spiritual, not merely a diplomatic, construct. The celebratory mood, amplified by media headlines proclaiming a new dawn, stood in stark contrast to another ancient warning. Daniel 8 verse 25, a passage of unnerving precision, declared that by peace he shall destroy many. This prophecy suggested that the very instrument of perceived stability, the carefully negotiated accord, would paradoxically become the means of future devastation. This destruction would not necessarily manifest through immediate, overt warfare, but through a more insidious form, the establishment of a false sense of security, a deceptive tranquility that would lull populations into complacency, rendering them vulnerable to a subsequent, unforeseen betrayal. The current agreement, therefore, was not merely a political document, it was, within the prophetic narrative, a dangerous illusion, a foundation laid for an impending collapse. This intricate tapestry of diplomatic achievement and prophetic warning brought the narrative to its most critical junctures. What if this carefully constructed pact, applauded by nations as a triumph of reason, was in fact the precursor to the final rupture? What if this intense, multilateral search for peace and security was not the culmination of conflict resolution, but rather the prelude to the final breakup? And perhaps most impactfully, what if the next leader to emerge from the ashes of this negotiation, a figure perhaps strengthened by his role in this very accord, or one who capitalizes on the resulting climate of fragile hope, is the character described by the prophets for millennia? This figure, an individual promising universal stability and ushering in an era of global cooperation, would bring in apparent peace, but break the agreement in its midst, thereby establishing the most sophisticated deception in human history. In this unfolding drama, Prime Minister Netanyahu, with his unwavering dedication to Israel's security, former President Trump, with his confident assertions of brokering an ultimate peace, and Yahya Sinwar, with his defiant, distrustful presence, each played a pivotal, if unwitting, role. Each individual, through their actions, motivations, and inherent positions, contributed to the intricate construction of this prophetic stage. This, then, was not theory, it was sequence. Every prophetic utterance, every historical event, every geopolitical maneuver, was interconnected, building upon the last with an unyielding precision. Every event surrounding Israel was more than geopolitics, it was the chessboard of a cosmic plan. As the world applauded the diplomatic dialogue in Cairo, believing itself to be constructing a stable tomorrow, the silence from above became profound. For the spiritual gaze, this negotiation was not a definitive endpoint, it was an undeniable sign. A chilling reminder that the ancient prophecies were not dormant. The celestial clock continued its inexorable count, and with each passing second, its echo grew louder, more insistent. Israel, the land of beginnings and endings, stood once again at the absolute center of global attention. And what appeared to be a hard-won agreement, a triumph of human reason, could very well be the prelude to something far greater than any human mind could fathom. Peace and security. These words resonated in the headlines, in the conference halls, in the deepest human aspirations. But the scriptures had already given their stark warning: when they shall say peace and security, sudden destruction comes upon them. The world, in its hopeful blindness, was unknowingly opening the door to the final chapter. As the global applause for the Cairo Accord fades, a profound stillness descends, often misinterpreted by many as the advent of true peace. Yet, for those attentive to the underlying currents of history and prophecy, this cessation of human dialogue merely allows the ancient echoes of foretelling to rise, resonating with an undeniable urgency. The world, in its hopeful embrace of peace and security, has unknowingly stepped onto a path forged millennia ago, a trajectory where every carefully worded treaty, every optimistic declaration, serves not as a definitive resolution, but as an overture to an immutable divine plan. The convergence of geopolitical maneuvers and scriptural warnings on this pivotal October 7, 2025, compels a deeper reflection. History, we find, is not merely a collection of random occurrences or a series of human errors, but a meticulously woven tapestry, each thread pulled by an unseen, guiding hand. What appears as a triumph of political will, when viewed through a prophetic lens, reveals itself as a precisely timed marker in a cosmic narrative, signaling a profound shift in the very fabric of global existence. The aspiration for peace is an inherent human yearning, yet the scriptures consistently caution that a peace crafted solely by human hands, in defiance of deeper spiritual truths, often becomes the most dangerous and deceptive illusion of all. The intricate alignment of current events with ancient prophecies invites a critical examination of our collective perceptions. How do you interpret the synchronized global shifts we are witnessing, particularly in light of these pivotal peace negotiations and the historical parallels they evoke? We encourage you to share your insights and reflections in the comments below, contributing to this ongoing dialogue. Your engagement fuels our mission to bring clarity and context to these critical times. If this exploration has resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to Scripture's Flow, ensuring you remain informed as these profound prophecies continue to unfold.